How are you guys doing? Today is Saturday, March 27th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Friday, March 26th. And of course, I'm going to preview all the performances, everything that goes on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. With the NFL no longer in season and the MLB right around the corner, but still yet to start, I'm going to get started in the NBA and start from there jumping to Detroit. The Detroit Pistons hosted the Brooklyn Nets for the first time since the Blake Griffin trade. And in this one, the Brooklyn Nets would pull off a 113-101 win at the very end after outscoring Brooklyn by 9 in the first half and Brooklyn led by 9 in the first half and kept Detroit from coming back. For the Detroit Pistons in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, Jeremy Grant, who finished with 19 points and 3 blocks in 37 minutes, shooting 5 for 14 from the field and 8 for 10 from the foul line. And also their center, Mason Plumlee, would finish with 13 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists as he had a crazy fake shot and then just dunk on the Nets in the first quarter, which was kind of a highlight. And then looking at how the Nets performed in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard, James Harden, who finished with 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 assists. And he also did foul out in 42 minutes as he shot 14 for 30 from the field, 4 for 11 from 3, and 12 for 4 from the foul line. After the game, he made the declaration that he is the MVP. So that's how Harden's night went. And off the bench for the Nets, their elite power forward, Blake Griffin, would finish with 17 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 5 fouls in 20 minutes as he shot 5 for 8 from the field, a perfect 2 for 2 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Brooklyn Nets are now 31-15. That is the second best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won 8 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they are a game and a half behind the Philadelphia 76ers, sitting in first place, and they also sit a game ahead of the third place Milwaukee Bucks to give a sense of where the Brooklyn Nets are. And with this loss, the Detroit Pistons are now 12-32 as they hold the worst record in the Eastern Conference. After they had just lost their third straight game, they've lost 7 of their last 10. They currently sit 9 games behind the 8th place Miami Heat outside the playoff picture looking in, as they sit 19 and a half games total behind the first place 76ers. That's one of the games out there. Jumping out to Tampa, the Toronto Raptors hosted the Phoenix Suns in Tampa, and in this matchup, the Phoenix Suns would beat the Raptors by 4 to get their 30th win of the season after they went on to outscore Toronto in the first 3 quarters. For the Raptors in this game, their leading scorer will be their elite starting power forward, Pascal Siakam, who finished with 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists in 38 minutes, shooting 8 for 17 from the field and 10 for 11 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, would finish with 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists in 35 minutes as he shot 4 for 12 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3 as well. And alongside both these guys, their starting shooting guard, Fred VanVleet, would finish with 22 points in 39 minutes as he shot 8 for 18 from the field and 6 for 15 from 3. For the Phoenix Suns in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Chris Paul. I guess he tied for the team high as he had 19 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals in 36 minutes, shooting 8 for 16 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. And tied for him with the team high would be their starting center and the number 1 overall pick from the 2018 draft, DeAndre Ayton, who finished with 19 points and 9 rebounds alongside 2 blocks in 29 minutes, shooting 9 for 12 from the field and 1 for 1 from the foul line. Alongside those two, their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker, would finish with 16 points and 6 rebounds and 2 assists in 34 minutes as he shot 6 for 14 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 30-14. That is the second best record currently in the Western Conference, as they have now won 7 of their last 10. They and the Clippers both have 30 wins, as the Suns have 2 less losses, which give the Suns the advantage there. In the playoff picture, they sit 3 games behind the first place Utah Jazz, and they now sit a game ahead of the Los Angeles Clippers, like I just said. And then with this loss, the Toronto, now Tampa Bay Raptors are now sitting at 18-27. That is the 5th worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they have lost lost 9 of their last 10. They currently sit 3.5 games behind the 8th place Heat out of the playoff picture, as they sit 14 total games behind the Philadelphia 76ers in the conference. Jumping to Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Bucks hosted the Boston Celtics, and in this matchup, the Celtics would beat the Bucks 122-114, the difference being the third quarter where they outscored the Bucks by 9 to get their 22nd win of the season. For the Bucks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, Chris Middleton, who finished with 19 points and 2 steals in 29 minutes, shooting 7 for 11 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3, and he made his only free throw of the night. And then their elite power forward, Giannis Antetokounmpo, would finish with 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists in 27 minutes as he shot 6 for 12 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, and 3 for 6 from the foul line. For the Boston Celtics in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Jason Tatum, who finished with 34 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists in 33 minutes as he shot 13 for 18 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. Their starting point guard, Marcus Smart, would finish with 23 points, 8 rebounds, 23 points and 8 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field and 7 for 10 from 3. Their elite starting point guard, Kemba Walker, would finish with 21 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 31 minutes, shooting 6 for 16 from the field, 3 for 10 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the line. And alongside all those three, their all-star shooting guard Jaylen Brown would finish with 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists in 30 minutes as he shot 6 for 15 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 22-23. That is the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now only won 4 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, they sit a game behind the 5th place New York Knicks and the 6th place Atlanta Hawks, and they also sit half a game ahead of the 8th place Miami Heat to give a sense of where they sit in the playoff picture, as they sit 10 full games behind their division rivals, the Philadelphia 76ers, who are sitting in first. And with this loss, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 29-15, as they have still won 8 of their last 10. They are in the playoff picture. They are a game behind the 2nd place Brooklyn Nets, and they also sit 6 games ahead of the 4th place Charlotte Hornets, as they sit 2.5 games behind the 1st place Sixers out east. Jumping to Charlotte, the Charlotte Hornets hosted the defending Eastern Conference champions Miami Heat, and were able to pull up a 110-105 win to pick up their 23rd win of the season. The difference for the Charlotte Hornets, of course, being the first half. They outscored Miami by 17 points in the first quarter and 6 in the second, outscoring them by 23 total. For the Miami Heat in this matchup, they had 2 leading scorers. Their starting shooting guard, Duncan Robinson, would finish with 20 points in 28 minutes, shooting 7 for 10 from the field and 6 for 9 from 3. Alongside him, their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, would finish with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 9 assists in 38 minutes, as he shot 7 for 16 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the foul line. Alongside both of them, their elite starting center, Bam Adebayo, would finish with 17 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals in 35 minutes, as he shot 7 for 11 from the field and 3 for 6 from the foul line. With this, and then looking at how the Charlotte Hornets fared, their starting shooting guard, Terry Rozier, would finish with 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 11 assists in 37 minutes as he shot 9 for 18 from the field, 4 for 10 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the line as he led the starters in scoring. Leading the scorers off the bench was their shooting guard out of Kentucky, Malik Monk, who finished with 32 points in 26 minutes, shooting 12 for 15 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the line. With this win, the Charlotte Hornets are now 23-21. That is the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won their last 3 games and 7 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they sit 6 games behind the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks, as they also sit half a game ahead of the 5th place New York Knicks and the 6th place Atlanta Hawks, to give a sense of where they are, as they sit 8.5 games behind the 1st place 76ers in the conference. And with this loss, the defending Eastern Conference champs Miami Heat are now 22-24. They hold the 8th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now lost their last 6 games, 6 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they sit half a game behind the Boston Celtics, and they're about even in the playoff race with the 9th place Indiana Pacers. The Pacers have just lost one less game, and they've won 1 less game. So of course the advantage goes to the Heat in this situation. And they also sit a game and a half ahead of the 10th place Chicago Bulls, who are on the outside looking in, as the Miami Heat sit 10.5 games behind the first place 76ers out east. To get a sense, and jumping out really quickly to Orlando, the Orlando Magic hosted the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers will pull away with a 112-105 win. They went on to outscore Orlando by 10 in the first half, carrying that momentum to the end of the game to pick up their 27th win of the season. For Orlando, their leading scorer would be their starting power forward, Okeke. Chuma Okeke would finish with 22 points on the night. As, like I said, he led the team in scoring. He finished also with 6 rebounds in 37 minutes as he shot 9 for 15 from the field and 4 for 6 from 3. And then for the Portland Trailblazers in this matchup, their leading scorers would be their small forward, Norman Powell, and CJ McCollum. Powell would finish with 22 points and 2 steals in 36 minutes as he shot 7 for 13 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. And alongside him, CJ McCollum would finish with 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists in 36 minutes without Damian Lillard being there, as he shot 8 for 26 from the field, 2 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. With this win, the Portland Trailblazers are now 27-18. That is that's tied with the Nuggets for the 5th best record in the Western Conference, as the Trailblazers have now won their last 2 games and 6 of their last 10. In the picture, the Nuggets and the Blazers now sit a game and a half behind the defending NBA champs, the Los Angeles Lakers, who are sitting in the 4th seed, and they also sit 3 games ahead of the 7th place Dallas Mavericks, who are playing incredibly well, as the Nuggets and the Trailblazers both sit 6.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz, to give a sense of where the Trailblazers are. With this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 15-30. That is the second worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now lost 8 of their last 10. They are the second team in the Eastern Conference to lose 30 games, as they currently sit 6.5 games outside of the playoff picture behind the 8th place Miami Heat, and they also sit 17 full games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers in the conference. Jumping out to Minneapolis, the Timberwolves, who are currently host of the NBA's worst record, hosted the Houston Rockets, who are currently the NBA's worst team right now. And the Timberwolves were able to beat the Rockets 107-101 to give them, I believe, their 20th loss in their last 21 games, I believe. And for the Minnesota Timberwolves for the Houston Rockets in this matchup, their starting guard, Ben McLemore, would finish with 21 points in 36 minutes as he shot 7 for 10 from the field, 7 for 15 from the field, and 7 for 14 from the 3 line. Their leading scorer would be their starting center, Christian Wood, who finished with 24 points and 9 rebounds in 36 minutes, shooting 9 for 16 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the foul line. And their elite starting point guard, John Wall, would finish with 14 points, 3 rebounds, and 15 assists, alongside 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 7 turnovers in 37 minutes, as Wall shot 6 for 25 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. For the Minnesota Timberwolves in this matchup, their leading scorer and the leading scorer for the game would be their elite starting center, Karl-Anthony Towns, who finished with 29 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists, alongside 5 turnovers in 35 minutes, as Cat shot 9 for 16 from the field, or 9 for 26 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and 7 for 8 from the foul line, as he went on to have a crazy game. With this win, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 11-34. And with this record, they still hold the worst record in the NBA, as they sit at the bottom of the Western Conference. They have won 4 of their last 10 games since Karl-Anthony Towns has been back. They currently sit 12.5 games out of the playoff picture behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs, as they sit 22.5 games total behind the Utah Jazz out west. With this loss, the Houston Rockets are now 12-32. That is the second worst record in the Western Conference. They've now won their last 2 and 9 of their last 10, as they currently sit 11 games behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs, a game and a half ahead of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they sit 21 full games behind the first place Utah Jazz for the entire conference. Jumping out to New Orleans, the New Orleans Pelicans hosted the Denver Nuggets in this matchup. The Nuggets would come from behind They came into the fourth quarter trailing by 1. They were able to pull up a 113-108 win to pick up their 27th of the season. For the New Orleans Pelicans in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting power forward and first-time All-Star out of Duke, Zion Williamson, who finished with 39 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 blocks in 39 minutes, shooting 16 for 19 from the field. He made his only three-pointer of the night, and he went 6 for 7 from the foul line. Alongside him, their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Brandon Ingram, not as great of a day as he finished with 13 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists in 37 minutes, as he shot 5 for 17 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3. And then for the Denver Nuggets in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting center, Nikola Jokic, who finished with 37 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, and 2 steals in 41 minutes, shooting 17 for 30 from the field and 3 for 5 from the three-point line. Their starting small forward, Michael Porter Jr., would finish with 25 points and 5 rebounds in 40 minutes, shooting 10 for 17 from the field and 5 for 6 from 3. And alongside those two, their elite starting point guard, Jamal Murray, would finish with 23 points, 3 rebounds, and 11 assists in 39 minutes, shooting 10 for 18 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and sinking his only free throw of the night. With this win, the Denver Nuggets are now 27-18, as they now have won 7 of their last 10 games. They and the Portland Trail Blazers both have the same record, as they both sit a game and a half behind the defending champs and the 4th seed Los Angeles Lakers. They also sit 3 games ahead of the 7th place Dallas Mavericks to get a sense of where they stand, as the Nuggets sit 6.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz alongside the Portland Trail Blazers. With this loss, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 19-25. That ties them with the Oklahoma City Thunder for the 3rd worst record in the Western Conference, as the Pelicans have now lost 6 of their last 10 games. They now sit 4 games outside of the playoff picture behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs, as they sit 14 total games behind the 1st place Utah Jazz in the conference. Jumping out to Dallas, the Dallas Mavericks hosted the Indiana Pacers, and the Pacers were able to pull off a 109-94 win. In the second quarter, they outscored Dallas by 11, and in the fourth quarter, they outscored them by 8. For the Dallas Mavericks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting center, Kristaps Porzingis, with Luka Doncic not being in the lineup. Porzingis would finish with 31 points and 18 rebounds in 38 minutes, as he shot 12 for 28 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the foul line. And for the Indiana Pacers in this matchup, their all-star starting power forward, Domantas Sabonis, would finish with 22 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists in 34 minutes, as he shot 6 for 11 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, and 9 for 12 from the foul line. And alongside him, their starting point guard, Malcolm Brogdon, would finish with 22 points and 6 rebounds in 29 minutes, as he shot 7 for 13 from the field, 6 for 9 from 3, and 2 for 4 from the foul line. Not something you normally see from a 90% free throw shooter, but Brogdon, pretty well still. With this win, the Indiana Pacers are now 21-23. Looking out into the Eastern Conference, that is the 9th best record total, as they have now won their last 2 games in 5 of their last 10. They are tied with the 8th place Miami Heat, in the playoff picture, as they have won 1 less game and 1 less loss. But sitting right there, they are sitting about even inside of the playoff picture, as they sit 1 game behind, or half a game behind, the 7th place Boston Celtics. They also sit a game and a half ahead of the 10th place Chicago Bulls, or right on their tail, as they sit 10.5 games behind the Philadelphia 76ers in the conference. Looking out to how the Mavericks fared, with this loss, they are now 23-20. That is the 7th best record in the Western Conference, as they've still won 6 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, they are now 3 games behind the 5th place Denver Nuggets and the 6th place Portland Trail Blazers, and they also sit half a game ahead of the 8th place San Antonio Spurs, as they sit 9.5 games behind the 1st place Utah Jazz out west. Jumping out, speaking of the Utah Jazz hosted the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Jazz were able to beat the Grizzlies 117-114 to keep their best record in the West. The Grizzlies would try to come back in the fourth quarter, but it just simply wouldn't be enough. Utah outscored Memphis by 14 in the fourth quarter and were able to hold back the momentum and keep the Grizzlies from coming back. They just didn't have enough time to. For the Grizzlies in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Ja Morant, out of Murray State, who finished with 32 points, 4 rebounds, and 11 assists in 37 minutes. shooting 11 for 21 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 9 for 11 from the foul line. Alongside him, they're starting small forward Dillon Brooks out of Oregon would finish with 22 points in 32 minutes, shooting 9 for 16 from the field and 3 for 8 from 3. And then for the Utah Jazz in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard Donovan Mitchell, who finished with 35 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists in 36 minutes. Shooting 12 for 23 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the line. Alongside him, their elite starting center, Rudy Gobert, would finish with 25 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 32 minutes, shooting 11 for 14 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Utah Jazz now have the best record in the They have the best record in the NBA, and especially the Western Conference, as they have now won their last 4 games and 6 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, they sit 3 whole games ahead of the second place Phoenix Suns. And I guess in total, they sit 22 and a half games ahead of the last place team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, to get a sense of how well the Jazz are performing this year. And with this loss, the Memphis Grizzlies are now sitting they're now sitting with a 21-21 record. That is the 9th best record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost 5 of their last 10. They now sit a game outside of the playoff picture behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs, as they sit 11 total games behind the 1st place Utah Jazz for the conference. And jumping out to the Staples Center, the Los Angeles Lakers hosted the Cleveland Cavaliers, except this game would not feature LeBron James, even though it was the Lakers and the Cavs. The Lakers would end up outscoring the Cavaliers by 18 points in the third quarter and 3 in the fourth. That's scoring them by 21 points in the second half to come from behind, take the lead, and pick up their 29th win of the season. The leading scorer for the Cleveland Cavaliers would be their starting power forward, Larry Nance Jr., who finished with 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in 27 minutes, shooting 7 for 13 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 2 for 2 from the foul line. For the Los Angeles Lakers, their leading scorer will come off the bench as the reigning NBA Sixth Man of the Year, Montrezl Harrell, would finish with 24 points and 10 rebounds alongside 2 steals in 30 minutes, shooting 10 for 15 from the field and 4 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the Los Angeles Lakers, the defending champs, are now 29-17. That is the 4th best record in the Western Conference. They have won 5 of their last 10 games. They've lost they lost the previous 4 after LeBron got hurt. But right now in the playoff picture, they sit a game behind their Staples Center roommates, the Los Angeles Clippers, and they sit a game and a half ahead of the 5th place Denver Nuggets and the 6th place Portland Trailblazers, as they trail the 1st place Utah Jazz by 5 out west. With this loss, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 17-28. That is the 4th worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now they've now lost 7 of their last 10 games. They now currently sit 4.5 games behind the 8th place Miami Heat out of the playoff picture, as they trail the 1st place 76ers by 15 total points in the Eastern Conference. And then last but not least, jumping out to San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors hosted the Atlanta Hawks, and in this matchup, the Hawks would beat the Warriors 124-108 after they outscored the Golden State Warriors by 18 in the first half and virtually kept it like that for the entire game. For the Golden State Warriors in this matchup, their leading scorer will be their starting small forward, Andrew Wiggins, former number 1 overall pick, as he would finish with 29 points, 7 rebounds in 33 minutes, shooting 10 for 19 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 5 for 7 from the line. And then for the Atlanta Hawks, their leading scorer would be their starting power forward out of Wake Forest, John Collins, who finished with a career high 38 points and 12 rebounds in 34 minutes as he shot 14 for 19 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3, and 6 for 7 from the foul line. Alongside him, their elite starting point guard Trae Young would finish with 21 points, 3 rebounds, and 15 assists in 36 minutes, shooting 6 for 14 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and 8 for 9 from the foul line. With this win, the Atlanta Hawks are now 23-22. That is tied with the Knicks for the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference, as the Hawks have now won 8 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, the Hawks now sit a half a game behind the 4th place Charlotte Hornets, and they also sit a game ahead of the 7th place Boston Celtics to get a sense of where the Hawks and the Knicks stand, as they both sit 9 games behind the 1st place Philadelphia 76ers for the conference. And with this loss, the Golden State Warriors are now 22-24. That is the 10th best record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost their last 4 games and 7 of their last 10. They sit 2 games out of the playoff picture behind the 8th place San Antonio Spurs, as they now trail the 1st place Jazz by 12 points in the entire conference. looking forward to what's going on today as we transition into a weekend packed full with basketball, and they also have to share their schedule with March Madness, starting with at 10 o'clock, the Los Angeles Clippers will host the Philadelphia 76ers on NBA TV. Probably the first NBA matchup of the season between two teams with 30 wins, but I have no idea. But outside of that game, at 8 o'clock, the Washington Wizards will host the Detroit Pistons. The Milwaukee Bucks will host the New York Knicks. The Minnesota Timberwolves will host the Houston Rockets for round 2 of the Western Conference Toilet Bowl between the teams with the two worst records in the conference. At 8:30, the San Antonio Spurs, battling for the 8th place playoff spot, are going to host the Chicago Bulls. At 9 o'clock, the New Orleans Pelicans are going to host the Dallas Mavericks, who are also fighting for a playoff spot. At 9 o'clock, the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to host the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics are sitting at the bottom of the East playoff picture trying to fight for a spot. At 9 o'clock, the NBA leading Utah Jazz are going to host the Memphis Grizzlies for round 2. And then at 10 o'clock, the Sacramento Kings are going to host the Cleveland Cavaliers, as that looks to be a matchup as De'Aaron Fox and Colin Sexton look to be two of the hottest young point guards in the game right now. That's what the NBA is looking like as of right now. Jumping really quickly to college basketball, starting with the men's bracket. It is the first day of 2 for the Sweet 16. It'll be 4 games today, starting at, at 2:40, it will be the 8-12 matchup in the Midwest region between Loyola Chicago and Oregon State. That matchup will be on CBS, and the winner of that will take on the winner between 2-seed Houston and 11-seed Syracuse. That will be at 9:55 tonight. That will be on TBS, and of course, that winner will decide who gets to advance to the Elite Eight, the regional finals. And then the other 2 games at 5:15, it will be the 1-5 matchup in the South region between 1-seed Baylor and 5-seed Villanova. That game will be on CBS, and the winner of that will decide who will face off in the Elite Eight between the winner of the next game. It'll be the 3:15 matchup in the South region between 3-seed Arkansas and 15-seed Oral Roberts. That game will be on TBS. As we navigate through this division, and by the end of today, the amount of teams in the tournament will go from 16 to 12. Really quickly looking on to what's going on with the women's bracket, starting with the Sweet 16 matchup in the Riverwalk region. It will be the 1-5 matchup between 1-seed UConn and 5-seed Iowa. Of course, UConn's been having an amazing tournament all the way through. That game will be on ABC, and the winner of that matchup will face off against the winner of the 2-6 matchup in the Riverwalk region between 2-seed Baylor and 6-seed Michigan. Of course, both teams have been having a great tournament, and the winner of both these games will go, and that will be probably the first matchup in the Elite Eight. And then jumping to the other 2 matchups in the women's bracket that are going to be today at 6 o'clock on ESPN2. It will be the 1-4 matchup in the Mercado region between 1-seed NC State, North Carolina State, and 4-seed Indiana. As the winner of that matchup will face off against the winner of the 2-3 matchup in the Mercado region between 2-seed Texas A&M and 3-seed Arizona. The Indiana North Carolina State game, like I said, 6 o'clock on ESPN2, and Texas A&M Arizona will be right after that on 8 o'clock on the same network, ESPN2. And just like the men's tournament, at the end of today, the amount of teams in the tournament will drop from 16 to 12 as this is day 1 of the 4-day weekend that will end with 4 teams remaining going into the Final Four for next weekend. So that's what's going on with college basketball. Jumping really quickly to hockey, staying within the context of an arena, but of course taking it to the ice. And of course, it's worth knowing that every team has to play within their own division to limit travel. I've been saying this for every episode, but starting off in Canada, north of the border, the Calgary Flames hosted the Winnipeg Jets, and the Jets were able to pull off a 3-2 win as they scored a goal in every period to pick up their 21st win of the season. With this win, the Jets are now sitting second in the North Division, as they now are tied with the Maple Leafs at the top. as the Jets have now won their last 3 games, as they've played one more game than the Maple Leafs to get a sense of where the Jets are. They're playing really well. And then jumping to the East, the Washington Capitals host the New Jersey Devils and were able to pull off a 4-0 win. Of course, they had their goalie led the way. Samsonov had 24 saves, not one allowed goal. And then they had 2 goals from their future Hall of Fame left winger Alexander Ovechkin. With this win, the Washington Capitals now sit at the top of the East Division as they now lead, or as they are now tied with the New York Islanders, as they played one less game than the Islanders. And the Capitals are also on a 2-game win streak to give a sense of what they're doing this season. Jumping out west, the St. Louis Blues hosted the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, and in this game, the Mighty Ducks would score 2 goals in the second and third period to pick up their 10th win of the season. With this win, the Anaheim Ducks are still sitting at the bottom of the West Division as they trailed the Golden Knights and the Avalanche by 19 total points in the table. And then last but not least, the Arizona Coyotes hosted the San Jose Sharks and were able to pull off a 5-2 win. 3 of their goals coming in the third period to pick up their 15th win of the season. With this win, the Coyotes are now sitting with the 5th best record in the West Division as they trailed the Golden Knights and the Avalanche by 10 points in the table. And they now have a 2-game win streak to give a sense of where they are. Jumping really quickly outside of the North American continent to get a sense of what's going on in the world of soccer. There weren't any big games yesterday, pray tell, to look forward to, but of course now they're getting back into World Cup qualifying matchups for today. I'm just going down the list. Netherlands is going to host Latvia at 1 o'clock. Norway featuring Erling Braut Haaland will host Turkey at 1 o'clock at the same time. Belgium will go to Czech Republic as Belgium is one of the favorites going into the World Cup. Portugal featuring Cristiano Ronaldo will face off against Serbia at 3:45 as well. And those are going to be the big matchups there. And that's kind of everything that's going on today. And of course, once all of these exhibitions and games are finished, I will get back to you tomorrow on Sunday, March 28th, 2021 out here in this quarantine. But once again, I'm James Sims, and I want to thank you all once again for listening to all 30 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace out.